Welcome to season 5 bonus episode with Sandy Hanshaw, all about the fifth line energy in season 5. And we have a 5-1 manifester today with us. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I love every 5-1 has an interesting backstory of how they met. So I just like to share the meeting of Sandy. So you own Sacred Owl and Salt Room. And I love the story of how you decided finally, I'm going to manifest this. An owl showed up at your window.
Absolutely. I was sitting here in the dark, looking out the window, and I knew it was the time for a change. And literally, the owl showed up, and I was like, "Got it." It projected. It pushed me to make the decision that I needed to make, and literally everything I'd been trying to cultivate for myself for years came to a head in that moment. I knew exactly what it was just by the owl showing up.
And do you have a spirit animal with owls? Like,
Here's the crazy thing: my spirit animal is actually a hawk. Hawk and white buffalo. So, what I have noticed though, as I look back at my life, whenever I have needed that extra push, there's been an owl in my life. Barn owls have come up multiple times throughout my life. I
hmm.
just didn't recognize them for what they were at the time.
hmm And our personal brand of the world is wisdom. So I always like the owl as a way to show that. Did you know you wanted to name it Owl? And like, did you already have this title for it?
Not at all. I was very hung up on the word mystic because I had previously had a candle line called Mystic Creations, which I still have it. It's just I've rebranded it into the Sacred Owl, but owl was nowhere on the horizon. So in that moment, again, I it just intuitively came to me that I knew it was the Mystic Owl and Salt Room, or excuse me, the Sacred Owl and Salt Room.
I love that. So you open and you happen to be, first of all, 10 minutes from my house. So anything that's close by is just a bigger shot that I'm going to show up. And it was right around the corner from where I was already hosting meetings myself. So that made it super easy. And I couldn't help myself. I had to ask you, hey, do you know about human design? What? And you're like, sure, someone told me once, but what does it even mean? And I just kind of had a feeling the 5-1, the manifester was just like a fun initiation surprise. But it's funny because you kind of look similar to Amy, who's a 5-1 manifester that I had on my podcast, season 4. Just like the blonde hair and like your facial structure is really funny. You both had glasses. Um, and so that's always my sign is how I know. And having this owl behind me has actually been helpful I've had clients say like, oh, owl is my first word when I was a kid. And I'm like, well, you're clearly in my soul family. What time were you born?
Right.
And I don't know, for me, owl ends up standing for Outstanding Women Leaders. And it led to this great acronym going along with the podcast. What girls don't like owls. I always say I'm just a 6-year-old girl in a 40-year-old body.
Love that.
And so I like to think that maybe I swooped over there and was like, hey, let's do something together. And I love being able to go to your shop and you're hosting workshops and just connecting people to more of the spiritual realm. Tell me a little bit more about that for you.
So part of what I wanted, what my dream for the Sacred Owl was, is spiritual education. And that goes kind of hand in hand with the owl at the same time with wisdom. It's giving people an opportunity to experience things they may not have. The classes that we offer and the workshops that we offer, they are eye-opening from the aspect of there's no religion or there's no politics. This is information. It's your responsibility to take that information and use it how you will that best suits you. So that has been amazing. And then the salt room, I am a lifelong allergy sufferer. And I found the salt room in Sedona, Arizona, when I was there on a long weekend, and it helped me tremendously. And not only did it help my allergies, it helped with my spiritual connection, which is why I tied that in together. And then, of course, you can't have a metaphysical shop without, kind of throwing in some of the other retail items, intention candles, all that other kind of good stuff. But really, for me, my passion is helping others to learn how to become okay with themselves, who they are, let their weird come out because what's normal. And then with that, creating that safe community where anybody can come to talk about whatever it's funny. We always laugh because every time we come to work, we just never really know what we're going to talk about that day. We've created that space in that community, which has been amazing. That's there was an intention there, but it's blossomed to so much more than what I ever thought it would, just in the short amount of time we've been open.
Mm. And so a very aligned 5-1 manifester is someone who makes this choice, you initiate it, you find it, and then all these generators just showed up and started providing services for you. How great.
Absolutely. We have over 30 practitioners.
Hmm.
I put the idea out there and boom, it just all came into play. It was amazing. Still is amazing.
In the business world, ideally, you would initiate, get something started. The builder, 70% of us would show up to do all the different things that light us up and bring us joy. And an advisor, a projector would show up and guide the process for us. Our projectors are great at guiding the energies of others. So I love that you have really created that space very aligned with how you're designed, and you really don't know much about human design yet, which is super fun. You've got the 2145 conscious channel, so we know you're going to be great at management. There goes your day job. And
Yep.
if you don't have this defined strength in your chart, you don't have the ability to manage these large complex teams in corporate. So you really do bring that ability to manage a large amount of people to that table. From what you do know so far about being a 5-1 manifester, tell us a little bit about your experience, like growing up or just, yeah.
Well, now that I know a little bit about what a manifester is, it makes total sense to me how I did manage myself as a child because I would always come up with the idea of let's go play house, let's get married down at the railroad tracks. Bad idea, by the way, getting married in fourth grade. Um, but I was always that individual who came up with the ideas of what we should do. And then I would step back and let everybody else kind of figure out the details. And then I would just go along for the ride. And I still do that as an adult, but I never would have put two and two together that that was a manifesting trait until you and I had met and you exposed me to human design. Um, I had some different challenges growing up because I'm intuitive and I'm a medium. So I had communication with other realms that other people didn't. I didn't really know that when I was young, but I also see that as I was able to kind of corral all of that in a way where I had the idea and then all of a sudden it would show up for me. So I don't know how that all works, but when I said, hey, I need support, and I would put it out there, everybody showed up for me, which was amazing. Now I realize I was manifesting that help. I just didn't know how.
So the difference between you and me as the builder child, because the 5-1s were always the ones that are initiating all the solutions for the neighborhood kids. So I had a club. I initiated, and there was $2 to join and 50 cents a month for the dues. It
There
was
you go.
simpler time in 1990. But the problem is that I wouldn't just let the builders do whatever they wanted to do. I had to have my hands in there. Like, I'm a builder myself. The generators and the manifesting generators. I think my life lesson has just been learning how to, when I read I had zero skills for large companies, I'm like, that makes sense. I am meant to be a consultant. I am meant to swoop in and bring all of these innovations and ideas. I have that same channel that you have defined in your head. So the channeling, I now understand what channeling means in a different way because I'm way too left. You have mostly rightness in you. You have one left strategic way that you see the world. So you're going to be more in tune with your awareness, where it's like, I'm fighting myself. I have such strong logic. And then in the background, I have the right arrows that are running me in the body awareness background. And so my logic just took a lot longer to think that mysticism or anything like that would be useful or practical. But you've got that same 6124 channel where it's a channel of inspiration and it's divine inspiration, and you're able to pull it and bring it forward for people. It just looks different when you're an initiator out there in the world versus a builder.
Not going to say I haven't tried to be the builder. I have a stubborn streak where no, it was my idea, it's my baby, and I'm going to see it
Mm,
through. And it's not that I couldn't do it, but boy, I certainly took the hard road a lot of times where if I would have allowed the people who wanted to help me to step in, it would have made my life a lot easier. But you live and you learn.
yeah. I see manifestors now that, so 5/1s, like we're here to universalize and bring things to the masses, but I'll see manifestors like a 1/3 manifestor who, God bless them, they're here to to be an authority and a pioneer, but no, ain't nobody give a shit unless a fifth line comes in and starts to bring it to the masses. And so you see some of these manifestors who can be very frustrated in corporate. You seem to do pretty well in manifesting success for you in corporate. What's your secret there? Because in corporate, you got to follow their rules and you have to take their orders, and that's not easy for you.
So I have learned how to give the orders. So I took a step back early in my career to learn as much as I could and then try to think of different and unique ways to add to those initial ideas that they gave me to make it my own and then sell it that, oh, this is what we need to do. Therefore, it was my idea. And I gained support and followers that way. Now, I'm very fortunate in what I do because I'm a training manager during the day too. I do a little bit of everything, but with that piece, people consistently want to come to my trainings because of the way I explain things to them. And it's here it is. You think of more ways to add this, but here's your generalized idea. And again, it's one of those things I didn't realize I was doing it, but I was handing it off to the generators or the manifesting generators. So I've had great success because of using those techniques, which I didn't know were human design.
Mm, yeah. So I have a 5/1 manifestor client who cracks me up. I never laugh so hard around her. She has the same channel of management that you have, also works in a huge corporation. And I had a session 2 weeks ago where she's like, no, I'm just angry. They want to give me this promotion. And I told them they should have given me this promotion 6 months ago. And so I'm just angry about it. And so I just look at her, I'm like, so you're smarter than everybody else and you're pissed off. She's like, well, when you put it that way, it sounds really petty. And, um, and because she's got that same strength you do for management, she's like, yeah, corporate's gonna be slower. Like you're faster than people. You're here to initiate some things. Yes, you're gonna be able to see stuff that they can't see, but you also just have this, well, the strength that says this is how management works.
Mhm. I have no problem stepping up and taking control of a situation when nobody else will
Hmm.
do it, or if it's just like, well, this is all we've got. And I'm like, well, how do you not see A, B, and C? And that's kind of when I like to step in and think about this. And I have had to learn because I'm very blunt. I've had to learn how to soften the edges in corporate because sometimes the idea will get lost on the presentation. So they can't get beyond that, even though it's a great idea. The way I've maybe said it, I've hurt feelings along the way.
Yeah, that's so true. And where I see the biggest key to your success is just understanding how builders work so that you can work with them. And I see manifestors in the human design community that really want to be the pharaoh again. They really got like that. You guys were the pharaohs, right? You had all these builders that you told what to do, and the projectors couldn't figure out anything because they didn't have their own energy source. So they're over there like, I'll be a builder. They're so efficient. Projector can get done in 1 hour, but it takes your builders 4 hours to get done. They just don't have the 4 hours. So if you're making them work an 8-hour workday, you're wasting your projector's talent. You really just want them for the short amount of time, get your work done, go do something that makes you feel successful. But you've really carved out, like you're a great example for our manifestors. And I do see that with my 5/1 manifestors I think there's something to do with that. You get a solid foundation. You said you took a step back, like you started to recognize where you could soften so that you're able to universalize. It's exciting to see you initiating, particularly a place where, I love what you initiated there. I get to go and teach some classes and be able to connect with the community and meet all these generators. What advice, now I know that you don't know a ton about your own design, but you're living it so well. Like, what advice would you give a 5-1 manifester?
Oh boy. Honestly, I think the biggest thing is when you get those inspirational hits intuitively, like those random thoughts of, oh, that'd be a really good idea. I could do A, B, C, D, you could create this so big. Run with that. Find your audience to share that with and watch it come to fruition, because as you find your audience, people that are just as excited about that idea, a lot of the times you found your generators who will take the baton and go with it. I think what happens to a lot of people though is we get that inspiration and we automatically think of all the ways it won't work. I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have the space, whatever it happens to be, and it goes away. So one thing I have recognized now that I know about human design is when those inspirational hits come to me, absolutely jump on them. One of the things, retreat kept coming up for me. Boom. I've never put a retreat together, but let me tell you, I've never learned so much about logistics and putting a retreat together. And we've got one scheduled for September of this year. So,
Yeah. My other thing I love about 5-1s is that you have to come to the 5-1 group and meet all these women, is we're all over the world and we all have very similar themes that come up. So we've talked about those 3 types, but reflectors, we call them evaluators in corporate. They're only 1% of the population, but I found one. And
really,
yes, and what's funny is
the elusive reflector?
she's like, I'm in a reflector group. I can bring you a ton of reflectors if you like. I'm like, well, here's the rub, Esther, you only need one. So we're good with just you. You're enough. But what's fascinating is she'll sit there and she'll hear all of us talk. All of us in there are builders, and there's a couple advisors that'll show up, but she'll hear all of us talk. And then she will just tell us something that she's doing that just sort of evaluates everything. So we were talking about communication. It was just a theme in everybody's life that week. And I see 60 people a week. So I see these themes as well. And then she tells us how this week she's been experimenting with castor oil on her throat and trying to, because she has an open throat. And so you people, the 72% of people that put pressure on our throats, she's trying to find like, what is my own voice? So she truly does reflect what's happening in the 5-1 community. This last week, we talked about self-compassion. I don't know if that was a theme for you last week, but
It
self-compassion.
was.
Self-compassion is
I feel very called out.
Yeah. And when I talk about self-compassion, people say, well, I'm harder on myself than I am on others. I'm like, well, that just means you're hard on others.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Esther tells us, and of course, I can't remember off the top of my head, but whatever she tells us is happening is a direct reflection of where we're all at in just a very unique way. And so I'm also putting a retreat together. Of course, we're doing retreats. Mine's going to be in Portugal this summer in
Nice.
August. And same exact, for me as a builder, I'm supposed to get this like gut hit and just go with it. So I do love that you're like, well, it kept coming up and it kept coming up because you are an emotional intelligence manifester. So you have this emotional wave that you ride. And in BG5, they refer to that as emotional intelligence, which just sounds way better than telling someone they're emotional. So just a little tip. Now, when I talk about it, I tell people like, well, it sounds like you have emotional intelligence and that you're really feeling into decisions. Like that for some reason seems to resonate a little bit more than telling someone they're emotional. And
Exactly.
yeah,
100%.
yeah, which means it hit a little bit different when they talked about my side of the coin, where they're like, so you just get distracted by them. I'm like, fudge, you're right. I do get distracted by emotions. And that also means wisdom. I kept saying that to you when we were talking, is that means I have the ability to be wise about the emotions in the room once I stop being distracted by them. So all those your open identity center and your open energy resource center, your sacral, those would be the 2 places where you would find yourself occasionally getting distracted.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Especially now that I know what they are.
Yeah. How do you initiate like your destiny when you are not aware of your own identity or purpose?
Well, here is the unique thing. The people that are closest to me in my life have all been friends for years, like 20 and 30 years. when I pulled all their human design charts and compared them to mine, I had called in people that had defined centers where I didn't. So when we're together, we're feeding off each other's energy. And it was my best friend, for example, where I am defined, she is not, and it's exact opposite.
Opposites
And
attract. So we're magnets
yes.
where we find them.
So I have found that inadvertently I have pulled all of these people to me. And now that I also know what human design is, I ask everybody, where are you born? You know, I need your information to put it in my app on my phone. People are starting to think, what is wrong with her? But it's helping me recognize, oh, yes, this is why I feel good around you. Or this is why you drain me when I'm around you. I'm just like, oh, well, it's because they need my energy. You know, they're feeding off of me where I'm not getting anything off of them.
Yeah, generators, when
I
we're
think I'm
out,
at a tangent off there, but you
you're
get the
right.
point.
When we're out of alignment, we feel very heavy to be around. And
Mhm.
so we'll show up with our batteries, and that energy won't feel buzzy and nice that you get to borrow. It'll feel very heavy. And in our identity center, you're going to feel whether or not that person is aligned with themselves and their purpose. So, or if they're struggling. And a lot of us generators are going to connect from our energy source straight to our identity center. And so you also may be feeling not only like the lack of the energy being heavy, but you'll feel their identity feeling heavy. You'll feel their lostness, if you will.
Yeah. That would make sense because I do feel people's energy intuitively, just naturally. And I can always kind of, when you walk into a room, I can always tell, oh, I want to stay away from that side of the room. I don't know who it is, but somebody over there is, you know, I call them energy vampires. Like it's
Yeah.
someone who's going to, my cup is full when I walk in, but hanging out with that individual, my cup is going to be empty by the time I'm done leaving that
Yeah.
conversation or that event or whatever it happens to be.
That's why the builders have to do most of the work for you because we have our own batteries. So we're not going to be as sensitive in our energy resource there. Emotionally, I can feel drained after that because I am so wide open there. So I will swim in whatever emotions that people are swimming in that day. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, you can head over to our main episode to learn more about Sandy, the Sacred Owl and Salt Room, her background. She comes from a long line of 5-1 manifestors, which is also very interesting to note about her. And Sandy, if people wanted to connect with you, they can head over to the Sacred Owl and Salt Room on Facebook and Instagram. Anywhere else you'd
Yes.
like? Yes. Anywhere else you'd like people to connect with you at?
You can go to our website, which is just thesacredowlandsaltroom.com. And we are venturing out on TikTok, where there we're just the sacred